This is Jos Mottershead of equinereproduction.com. We're looking at a mare that's standing in the stocks preparatory to having an embryo transfer flush performed. She's been prepped up. She's had her vulval region washed. She's got a tail wrap on, and that tail is kept out of the way now to avoid recontamination. She is tranquilized. That's why she's standing there with a goofy expression on her face and a droopy lower lip and her head right down. It's a good idea to tranquilize because she's going to be standing in these stocks for a little bit of a time frame while the flush occurs, so that we don't want her moving around too much at that point. The process of embryo transfer is where an embryo is removed from the donor mare, and this is the donor mare we're looking at, and it's actually transferred into a recipient mare. The purpose behind that, multifold. There are several reasons one might want to do that. One, for example, would be if you've got a mare that's in competition, a donor mare that's in competition, and you don't want her to have a pregnancy and have to take her out of competition for that, so you can flush the embryo and transfer that into a recipient mare. Another possibility is a mare that perhaps has got some reproductive damage, such as a damaged cervix or a tremendous amount of uterine damage that's going to prevent her from carrying a pregnancy over a long-term period. So all areas where one might consider embryo transfer as an option. Another possibility would be if you want to actually produce multiple foals from a mare in any given year, because if you're lucky and things work according to plan, you may end up actually getting as many as 8 foals a year out of the mare. It's a possibility. So purpose behind embryo transfer, multifold. Looking here at the incubator, and Jamie is in the process of affixing the tubing to a bag of embryo flush. It's a flush media. This is what's actually going to be run into the mare. That's what he's holding up there right now. The tubing allows the fluid to run down into a Foley catheter, which is inside that pink bag at the moment. The Foley catheter is sterile. That's going to be in a moment be introduced into the mare through her vagina, in through her cervix, and then the cuff will be inflated to prevent a backflow of the fluid back out. It'll be inflated and pulled back against the cervix, and then the fluid will be run in. And once all the fluid, or a significant portion of the fluid's been run in, the little stopcocks that are on there, you can see the blue and red clamps, they will be turned off, and the fluid then is drained back out through a filter, which hopefully will capture an embryo. Not all embryo flushes are going to yield an embryo. Statistically speaking, about 50% of flushes will yield an embryo. That's statistically. Now, of course, there are lies, damned lies in statistics, so we may end up getting no embryo, or we may end up getting multiple embryos. You never can tell. So Jamie's in the process of introducing air into the cuff that's at the end of the Foley catheter that's now been placed inside the mare's uterus. And in a moment, the whole Foley will be pulled back just a little bit, there we go, to actually position the cuff against the cranial portion of the cervix, the head end of the cervix. And now in a moment, everything will be released and the fluid will be run into the mare's uterus. So now the fluid's being run back out and through the filter. And the trick with the filter is to make sure that you have a little bit of fluid sitting in the bottom, so that if that embryo, or technically actually it's an expanded blastocyst, does come down there, it's not going to bang its head against the filter. You want it to go into the fluid portion. And that's the tricky art of maintaining a little bit of fluid in the bottom of the filter. Starting and stopping and starting and stopping the recovery, because if you do that, the embryo will be sucked up towards the cervix, and then when you shut off the filter and the drainage or slow it down, then the weight of the embryo will cause it to settle back down into the uterine body, and then you open up the filter again and it creates a suction again, and the embryo gets floated back up to the top and then doesn't quite make it to the cervix again, and once again you shut it down, it sinks back to the bottom, and you end up not recovering the conceptus. So once the mare's been flushed, the embryo hopefully will have been trapped in the filter, which we're looking at here, and then that will be taken back to the lab and a search will be done, which we'll see in a little bit. And the mare herself can go off and continue on her career, whether she be a competition mare or whether she's going to go off and be bred again in order to have another foal potentially this year, or even possibly be sold. So what we're going to do is take some fluid that's been drawn up into a needle and syringe. We're going to drain down the filter slightly here, and then rinse off the lid with that fluid that's in the needle and syringe. Drain down a bit more again, remove the air bubbles that you can see on there, and then transfer the remaining fluid, rinsing it out, into the search dish. Then we'll go under the dissecting microscope and search for the embryo.